build and everything like that. And so for kitchen cabinets, the depth of the lower cabinet is around 23, 24 inches. The depth of the upper cabinets in your kitchen around 12 inches. And that's sort of a universal size. When you put your countertops on, there could be 25 or 25 and a half inches deep. But this here is going to be 14 inches. And so if you looked at this, this is 36 and a half, this is 36 and a half, this is 22, this is 22. How many pieces of board can I get out of a run of, on a 4x8? Well, I can get 1, 2, 3 of them, but I can't get any more. And so I'm using up roughly a half a sheet of plywood to make this cabinet. A sheet of plywood is around 95 bucks. So this cabinet here, all said, when everything's done, about 75 bucks, I guess, maybe something like that.
For the one cabinet.
For the one cabinet. Yeah.
So with no doors.
With no doors. Now, with doors, it'd be about maybe $100 when I'm finished with making the doors. And the doors are made out of solid oak, which is different than what you see here. So the very first thing I do is I cut the wood in the lengths I can. The other thing you have to remember is whenever you're going to build cabinetry, you have to decide what tools do you think you can convince your wife to buy before you start? When I first started cabinetry, I had an old tabletop table saw from Craftsman, and I had an old saw and a jigsaw, and that was it. And I had to convince her I needed to get a biscuit joiner, and it was a great purchase at the time. But whatever you do, you have to look at what tools in your workshop, that'll limit what you're going to use and buy. Yeah. That's exactly right. I've been working on with a cabinet maker saw lately, but it isn't going too far right now. So the very first thing I said is you cut your wood, and because I don't have a great saw, I always cut my wood a little bit wider than it should be. So instead of being 14, I'm going to cut it 14 and a quarter. And so I cut all my pieces, and then I have my 1, 2, 3 pieces, 14 and a quarter. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run them through, and I have them smaller sizes. I'm going to run them through again so they're more manageable, but also I'm cutting nice, clean edges. Because I don't know if you notice here with the camera, my edges are, I have wood on them. I put a 1/4 inch wood on them. In fact, I can, I'm going to hand that around. What I do to all my wood is I put a 1/4 inch wood trim. I just glue it to the front. And when I'm finished gluing, there's usually bits sticking off on the side. And then I plane it off. I guess if you were to look at those pictures I have in there, Chris, one of the first things you do is you make sure you have all your wood and it's all lined up straight. Then you get the wood and you attach it all at the front here. At the bottom here, I don't know whether you can see with the camera or not, but at the bottom here, you'll see it looks like wood grain. Because that's an area that somebody can see. And so I make sure I do a wood grain down here and down here. I don't bother on the other ends because nobody's going to see it.
1/4 inch as well, or just another?
That's a glue-on veneer. This is it's a pre-glued. You can get wood that's not pre-glued and you put your own adhesive on. On this one here, I had to buy my wife a new iron. Because when you glue this on, it works wonderfully. But at the end of the day,
You put on your shirts.
yeah. Is there a picture in there with me doing the banding, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want one?
If sure, if you wouldn't mind. There it is. I'm cutting all the pieces of wood. It's really important that these pieces of wood here, are identical in size. Identical. This one here and here has to be identical. And so when I'm using my sled to cut plywood, and that's really why you use a sled. We have a sled at the back there. That's the primary reason a sled is used, is for cutting plywood. you make sure, you see on the right-hand side, you see a wooden stop there. So you bring your wood all the way over and you cut it through, so both pieces of wood are identical in size. Once they're cut properly to the length, then you turn around and you rip them all through.
Why wouldn't you just run it without that piece and just run off your fence? Is your fence not straight, or
Well, no, you don't want to bind.
are you gonna go bind?
Yeah, because if you try running it straight through all the way through,
Yeah.
you could bind.
Yeah.
So you just have to stop here.
Yeah, yes, to stop.
Stop could move is the idea.
Could
So
you-
what happens when you get past the stop?
Well, it's held flat onto the sled.
Oh, that was on the sled,
And
yes.
that's a sled, and so
Yes.
I slide
Yes.
the wood on the sled through the saw blade.
Yes, yeah.
That saw blade is an 82 tooth blade. It's made for cutting plywood. The more teeth you have, the better cut you have through wood. You have to remember too, whenever you're cutting plywood, if you cut with the grain, you're not going to have a lot of tear out. But if you cut across the grain, then you're going to be having a bit of tear out, even if you have a really good blade. Just 1 second. The blade on a saw turns towards you on a table saw, and so generally you want your good piece of wood. And don't forget, all of this wood, it's good two sides, but then there's one side that's not as good as the other. And so you want to make sure your good side is facing up, so you have a nice clean cut and there's no tear out. Yes.
Is that how high you keep the blade?
No, I had that up so people to show. But to be very honest with you, a lot of times I do. I hear everybody telling you it should be just a tooth above and all that. I find personally, when you're cutting, especially plywood, the cleaner down cut you have, the less tear out you have, and that'd be the only reason I use that.
What's the length of it? It looks like your sled's quite long.
Yeah, it is.
For doing panels and stuff like
Yes, yeah. I can get I think a 26-inch piece of wood on there, so.
that. Wow.
Okay, next picture there. Okay, after we get it all cut, then I have it all lined up. As you can see there, I've been doing a number of cabinets, but essentially you have two sides and two tops, and then I have your back hangers here. Your hangers, when you put it up on the wall, you have to have something to hang it up on with, and that's why I use the hangers right here, and I use them this way. If you were to look at true European style hinges, doors, and this isn't a true European style door, it's awful similar, but in the European style, the holes that they drill along here are in particular location. They're in a certain distance, and they're in both sides a particular distance, and they're certain distance up. And they use all of those holes to attach the hinges. They use those holes to attach the slides for drawers and whatever. So a true European is a little bit different. European, if it's my understanding, they were basically, it came about as a result of World War II, the end of World War II. There was a large number of houses that had to be rebuilt throughout Europe, Britain, whatever. And so they're trying to come up with a better way of building cabinets quicker, faster, better. And that's, I think, the reason why a lot of them were built in that way. Yes. What I will do, I have my small router here, and I have it's in here someplace then. I have a small routing bit, and I'll use the small routing bit. Yeah, there she is right here. I use a small routing bit like this. I put it in that little router, and I'll go in, and I'll just take it all the way around here, and I'll put in a 1/8 inch backing board. So from the when you open up the cupboard, it's a clean, white, smooth finish. I just haven't gotten around to doing this yet. That's all. But yeah, you do. It's yeah.
The bottom corner is close to Dennis right now.
Yeah.
No pocket holes, no screws.
Yeah.
Biscuit joint there.
Biscuit joint right along here. And in fact, I think there's one of those pictures in there, Chris.
Yeah.
There's a number of biscuit joints here holding this together, and they hold really well. I'm telling you, they're really
So
well.
Wayne, I'm just curious, why not carry the weight of the sides on the actual base?
I'm just going to say back there, there's a couple of pictures there. That's the edge banding. And in fact, I'm edge banding the top of these hanger boards here. And basically, you pull it to length, and then you iron it on. That piece of wood that I'm hanging out, pulling around there, you'll actually see part of it where one side I've cleaned it off smooth with the plane, and the other one is yet to be cleaned off. But that's what you do. This is a plane. It really pays to get good tools when you're using this stuff. And if you have to use a chisel or a plane, really spend the extra bucks to get a good sharpening system, because that's so important. Because if you have a nice sharp blade, those little curly cues come off, and it just makes you so happy. Yes. I could. The problem with the router bit is that the amount I'm taking off is so minuscule.
Yeah, but the router bit will go completely
Yeah,
off the surface.
Absolutely, you're right. The problem I have is I do the wobbly shit, and so with this here, I find I do it better with this, and I do a bit of sanding afterwards, and it comes off very nice and smooth.
There's also a special cutter for it too, right? You squeeze it, right?
Yeah, well, that nut, yes, you can. This here is the cutter you use.
Yeah.
I use it for melamine. I use it for maple and some of the other woods. I don't use it with oak. And the reason, because oak is a really open grain, and it really sort of goes off. And as sharp as you have these, they have a tendency of ripping and tearing off. And so I have a tendency of, I will use my plane that you saw there. I'll use my plane, and then I'll finish off with sandpaper.
Yeah, using a router or something
Yes, you can. Yeah. It doesn't burn plywood so much, but it can burn hardwood. I don't have it really going really fast, and it's nice to have a nice adjustable router. These things are really a good piece of kit to have there. Okay, we've got the pieces. Yes.
Do you use a shelf pin jig?
No.
Or do you put the whole?